Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. Well, I've carried out my flight to the North Pole on Microsoft Flight Simulator 10. I'm still no closer to the truth about what exactly that means, about the strange anomalies that you find when you carry out a flight like that. I'm wondering how this connects to Bill Gates, how it connects to the tailor-made mission on their secret shuttle and the flight to Area 51. But I think there is some significance here. I think that there's a sense of avoidance. You see, the Earth is supposed to be a sphere. It's a spherical planet. And no doubt, it is. It's not a flat. It's not flat. It's not a donut. It's not hollow. I'm not one of these people who questions that it is on the surface a sphere. But what I found is that the form that physical objects take is very much dependent on one's point of view. I've become to doubt the very reality of the universe around us, in a sense. The fact that that reality is a solid, objective, indisputable form or concept. Now this is a very difficult thing to explain, but maybe if you go back, I'll put a link in the description box. My video about the sun rising in the wrong place. It's one of my most popular videos, and it's where I was on the train and I saw that the sun had risen. The sun was actually in the wrong part of the sky. Now, of course the sun hasn't moved. The sun hasn't moved physically for everyone, because otherwise all the astronomers would know about it. Too many people would notice, But maybe the world we live in is not a solid object. Maybe there is. Maybe the forms, the supposedly solid forms we see around us, are actually subjective. They're actually subjective forms, so that you see one thing different from me. I actually made that point in the comments boxes on the video about the sun rising in the wrong place, because people were saying to me, "Oh, well, how could it be? How could it be? You can't. How did it happen? How did the sun move? How did the Earth move? How come nobody notices?" and things like that. And the answer is I don't know, but I get the feeling there are people who do. I get the feeling that the Illuminati do, and their various agencies. If you think that they are the enlightened ones, as their name suggests, they know so much more than the rest of us. They're in their ivory tower. The question is, though, they have to present the world in a way that hides their own knowledge and keeps it away from us. But tells a credible story to us. So when they design a computer game, sorry, get rid of that. When they design a computer game, that computer game, has to somehow have physical laws, or sort of pseudo-physical laws that work. So when if you fly to the North Pole in real life, maybe you won't. Maybe things do change. Maybe things alter. Maybe the world is not as it seems to be. Yet when you fly, very few people do fly to the North Pole. And those few who go there can easily be silenced. They can be co-opted. They can be initiated. But when the average gamer on front of his PC like me goes there, you got to think of something else. And maybe that's why we experience those physical anomalies that were written into the computer program just now when I was doing that flight. The plane flying sideways, the inability to land properly, the inability to, the fact that it wouldn't slow down when I wanted it to. Things like that. The fact that on the earlier versions of Microsoft Flight Simulator, there's a wall around the entire North Pole that is 10 degrees wide. And in fact, it's the same at the South Pole, I checked. the polar regions of the Earth are huge, and it's not often appreciated. It's not just a little white bit on the map at the bottom and the top. The polar regions are actually enormous. Antarctica is a huge continent. It's bigger than Europe, and it's not only the land surface, but it's the sea around it, which is covered in most of it, which is covered in ice most of the year. And I found out somewhere, I can't remember where, that the number of people who've actually visited the polar regions of the Earth. I mean, Eskimos. People talk about Eskimos. They live there, don't they? No, they don't live at the North Pole. They live actually. In fact, the most northerly Eskimo community is 700 miles from the North Pole. Hammerfest in Norway is I think it's 1,200 miles from the North Pole, something like that. I mean, that's the most northerly airport in the world. Really, the only people who've been into the polar regions of the Earth have been explorers and scientists, and this is, according to official history anyway, this has all happened within the last 100 years. And the total number of people who've been to the polar regions of the Earth, according to official history, is someone said it was 50,000. 50,000. Now that's fewer people than live in Abingdon, in Oxfordshire. Now open your map and see if you can find it. Abingdon in Oxford. It's just a few miles south of Oxford. I know where it is, but do you? See if you can find it. Well, that's the number of people who visited the polar regions of the Earth. We're talking about a vast area. You really, in terms of the southern polar region, you're talking about south of the 40th parallel, what they call the Roaring Forties, these really, really rough seas that encircle the Earth. We're talking about probably about a third of the entire Earth's surface. Now, but for some reason, there's enormous fixation on the part of the elite on this part of the world. They've been the scenes of secret wars. I'm going to ask you now. When did the Second World War end? When was it? 1945. You're going to say, aren't you? Wrong. It was 1948. How do you know that, Ben? How do you know that? How do you question something that was so obviously part of official history? How could the war have gone on for 4 years and for 3 years in secret? Well, it went on for 3 years in secret because the last part of the war was carried out in the southern polar regions of the Earth. This was because the Nazis had a stronghold in Antarctica. It was called New Swabia, and in 1946, what you've got to understand about the southern pole, the South Pole, is its summer is the northern winter. So it's basically when the northern hemisphere has its winter, that's the South Pole's summer, and nothing can be done in the South Pole except in summer, because in winter it's just too cold. In 1946, something called Operation High Jump took place. Check it out. I'll put links to my article in the description box about what I'm going to talk to you about. Now, basically, they sent an entire carrier battle group into the southern polar regions. Why? To count penguins? No. Well, the official story was it's meant to set up to check for natural resources. Well, the thing is, it's uneconomical to mine or extract oil from the southern polar regions because of the harsh environmental conditions. Most of the budget is spent on keeping your staff alive if you've got a base down there. In the season of 1947 and 1948, there was a British expedition into the southern polar regions, and a man contacted me, and he spoke to me about it because he actually served there, and I met with this old man in a pub. And the details are in the description box article. Now, all this leads me to think, perhaps, what I mean to say is perhaps that when you get near the poles, the world doesn't look the same as it does now. Maybe this subjective reality that I talked about, this change in the way the physical laws work, is present in the polar regions of the Earth. Maybe you go to the South Pole, and when a plane hits the ground, it really does bounce. Maybe it does fly sideways. Do you see what I mean? Now that might sound crazy, but how do we know? We have to go by the information that educational and exploratory sources gives us. And I don't think they're worthy of that trust. This is a big subject. There are no real answers to it, but Jack, this old man that I met, told me some remarkable things. There's also a guy called Admiral Richard Byrd, who was committed to a lunatic asylum when he came back from the South Pole, and he later died. He's another man who may have seen things down there that made him question the very fabric of existence, maybe to the point where it drove him crazy. Who knows? But you want to go to the poles. I mean, if you want to go to try and get to the poles. Just say to yourself, right, I want to go on holiday to the North Pole. Right, how are you going to get there? There's no roads. The climate is so incredibly harsh that if you don't have the infrastructure, the excessive infrastructure, you'll die long before you get there. For that, you need the authorities. You need escort by the military. There's a massive military presence there. Things like that. So how do we know? How do we know what's going on? Anyway, read the article because it's really interesting. If you've got anything to say, then let me know. Make another video. Put a comment in there, because I want to enter into discussion with people over this, because I've been sitting on this for years, and it's made me wonder. Oh, I wish I had the old Flight Simulator program so that so I could show you the wall around the poles. I just don't have it anymore. I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.